So this video is going to be about Tayson, but I wanted to take this opportunity to sort of step back from the traditional VOD review because I've seen several already on YouTube from people like Resub and Somebody's Gun. If you want to watch that type of video and learn about the actual performance and actual in-game strategies that Tayson used to win the solo all-stars, they're in the description. You can by all means check them out. But I wanted to take this chance to try something different and perhaps try something that might stick with you for your pro player, something that changes the way you think about competitive, because I actually wish I thought about competitive this way when I was competing and when I was trying to become a pro player. Most people tend to think in a way that gives them the tendency to work on things that they're already good at, right? And so if we're talking about a real life example, let's talk about when you're studying for an exam. There's two different things that happen here. Most people tend to start at chapter 1 because it gives them that feeling that they're actually studying, when realistically their studying is very low impact. They're not actually studying for something that will give them a lot of relevancy on that exam, because most exams don't tend to cover chapter 1. And most people already know what chapter 1 is because it's implied in the course, and also the chapters that they're weak in, they know nothing about. This is the thing that I want to talk about because I think it's a big area of weakness for most players in the competitive world of Fortnite. Why is Tayson so successful? This is the main question that I try to want to answer in this video today. We'll sort of break it down into two parts. The first part is just going to be a little bit of brainstorming, naming every single major skill in Fortnite that relates to competitive and trying to figure out which skills have very high impact on your performance and your placements and which skills don't. And this exists, and I think everyone watching this video can agree on this. There's certain skills in competitive that may not matter that much in competitive, right? They may not matter as much as something like aim, for example. We'll put aim. We'll just list out as many skills as we know. We'll talk about mechanics. We can talk about rotates. This is something related to game sense. We'll talk about end game sense. We also have edit speed. We also have edit accuracy. Let's talk about awareness. Awareness is a very important skill. And we can maybe break this down into mat awareness, right? Like you keep track of your mats and you know exactly how many mats you have at various points in the game. We can talk about mini map awareness. We can talk about general awareness, right? Things like on your screen, maybe audio cues, maybe visual and audio awareness. Okay. We can also talk about fighting, right? And if we want to break this down, we can sort of talk about early game fighting, right? Because this often becomes a macro game, becomes a game sense thing. It becomes how to abuse natural cover and abuse right hand peeks that already exist in your POI, and how to fight with maybe 100, 200 mats, and how to play the game of cutting off your opponent's loot path and sort of taking advantages from there. Right? So there's early game, there's mid-game fighting, right? Which can often become disastrous build fights that might ruin your economy. But there's also, you know, certain fights that happen in 3rd, 4th, 5th circle, which is just a simple box fight and the other guy being completely unaware. Then we have end game fighting, and this is a completely complex topic. I don't think it's that simple, and I think there's a lot of things that go into end game fighting, and I truly feel like Tayson has figured this out. I feel like Tayson has a really good grasp on endgame fighting, and he knows exactly when to look for fights and when to completely ignore it and just keep going forward and staying out of zone. So if I had to pick the important ones and what I would think is the more impactful ones, I think aim is very important. I think rotates are important. Endgame game sense is important. I don't think this is as important as people think. I don't think this is as important as people think, right? I think these are relatively overrated. I think this is very important. I don't think this is as important as people think, except for perhaps this one, especially in a grand setting when you're playing the final round of an entire tournament. I think that Tayson himself has landed Orchard. I don't think that the early game applies here. Mid-game fight, he rarely ever takes a mid-game fight, and this, I would think this end-game fighting is where he shines, and this sort of ties in with end-game game sense. Okay, end-game fighting sort of ties into here, so let's just put it in this bucket. I think this is extremely important, right? Being clicks, being O'Reilly is so old era. It doesn't exist anymore, and people, it becomes a supplement rather than a fundamental. And what I mean by that, it's something that aids you in achieving your goal, not something that is completely necessary to achieving your goal. I would say Tayson is not the best fighter in Europe. He is not the most fast, mechanical, speedy edit, right? Like, he is not fast. He is not someone that is just flashy. In fact, his mouse control is rather slow. It's very deliberate at where he crosshair places, and he makes sure that he focuses on the game sense rather than being extremely fast with the things that he does. When I say mechanics, I mean more flashy styles. I do think in a competitive world, those things are overrated. Edit speed, this sort of goes the same thing with mechanics, right? I think it genuinely is overrated. You do not need to have a fast edit speed. Players like Nanolite, players like Bizzle have showed us this in the past. It is a supplement, not a fundamental. Edit accuracy, I think this is a fundamental. Like, these things are all very important. I would even argue, like, if we want to really put it together, let's just cross these two things out and group them together into game sense. Right? Actually, let's use a different color because it kind of blends in. For me, I can't really see it that well. I have no idea if you guys can see it. So I would argue that game sense would be these two, right? Let's just group them together. Game sense, aim, and awareness, right? Having really good awareness and having really good edit accuracy. Those four things group together, and you really drill down and focus on this and ignore everything else. This whole exercise is try to figure out what skills are extremely valuable and are high impact to your sort of competitive performance. Anyways, let's go on to the second part of the video and watch gameplay.
You have to be focusing on right now. Tayson is literally in a world of hurt, but at the same time finds two. That could be the difference. It'll have to be Vino going for the win right now in order to catch up. He's going for Erkin as well. If he gets three, that could be it. He's moving forward, forcing the placement. Tayson on all walls, but he sees everything through. Finds it. A big match.
His aim doesn't have to be the best in the world, right? His aim just has to be good and reliable and consistent. Just a reminder, like the things that we talked about earlier, it would be edit accuracy, aim, his game sense, and his awareness. So one of the things I want to emphasize right away is how aware he is. So he's already looking up, he's editing through his ramps, he's making sure that he's aware. He doesn't just tunnel in on that kid that he was shooting at earlier, right? He doesn't just tunnel in on this guy out here that he's shooting at, and he just makes sure that he is fully aware about everything. And he sees this guy, actually. He sees this guy in his cone. And not being aware about this would have completely lost him the skill. He doesn't actually net the kill, but he nets the loot. And that's very important because that's a total of 150 mats for just being aware and just paying attention to the surroundings. And that sort of situation is not even something that majority of players would even notice. So it goes into circle, white static circle, and nothing to do for the next 7 seconds. And realizes that, and then looks for a kill. Because this is free time. As long as he's paying attention at the side of his, you know, in the back of his head, he's like listening for audio cues for anyone smacking on these walls. But if you notice to where he's spaced out, he's a block away from that guy. And also, you notice that after he does launchpad, there's actually no one deep back zone, right? So that means that he's not really worried about his back end when he turns around and looks to spray people. If there's a bunch of people back here where my mouse is, then it makes sense that he would maybe be a little bit more reluctant or be a little bit more careful and hesitant to open like that. But he sees this. He's completely aware, if you will. And it's actually really impressive what he's doing. Like, he's so disciplined in terms of what he needs to do and doesn't spend an extra second wasting time. Blocks every angle, understands that it's super hard to be aware about angles above you because you don't have any sort of visual indication of someone running on the layer above here. And so if he just blocks it off with this stair, just like so, he doesn't get shot from his back right in front of Storm and also from above. So he's protecting both angles and making sure that he's in a position to not get jumped on. Just that one build piece actually protects both. So it's really good. Realizes he's second height, tries to go up a couple layers. I don't know what he sees here. He must have just been covering his head. I don't know how he knows. This part literally makes no sense to me. I've watched this before and I still don't really understand. Is he going up, realizes that the height is free on the way up and then decides? Or does he already know that the person up here is just completely distracted? Because look what happens. This guy is completely unaware. He has no clue. He's all the way in the back storm, completely behind on tempo, and just doesn't understand what's happening. Right? And so, I mean, obviously, Tayson recognizes the fact that the guy's unaware, right? Obviously, if this Tayson's building up and then he sees the guy through his build looking right at him, then Tayson would be a lot more reluctant to go for this play. But because the guy on height is completely unaware, he gets a free 80 damage, which is enough to push him off of height, because Tayson's in front of zone compared to that guy and has an HP advantage and potentially has a mat advantage as well. So height should be his. So something that I want to talk about is how aim, right, can be broken up into long range aim, like ARs, right, like you're holding someone, and extremely close range box fights, right? And I personally think that this is more important, and I think a lot of people would agree, because if you miss the shot, your life is not on the line. If you miss long range shots, your life is not on the line. But this is extremely important, and actually very important to practice, right? And this is where things like aim duels help, right? You can practice aim duels, and this is why people sort of, you know, emphasize aim duels a lot. But also people like to emphasize Kovac scenarios that have a lot of close range tracking, a lot of close range pump shotgun scenarios. And so Kovac's scenario, specifically tailored towards close range aim, is going to help you a lot. So although it doesn't mean don't practice your long range aim, it just means that you know which one to prioritize now, right? Because this one's deciding your game, whereas this one's just deciding whether you net a kill or not. You see that? Like, I would not say Tayson in general does have good long range AR aim, but he's not the best I've ever seen, right? He does net a lot of kills just by ARing, and I think there's a lot of game sense that's involved in terms of where you need to look. In other words, awareness, but also in general, just like from the experience of playing scrims and tournaments, you sort of get the, over time, just sort of understand where to look to net kills. Has the discipline to go up despite having that guy full box, just because of the fact that he will win the game in the long run because of the chuck cannon. He just has to play it slowly. He should just trade chuck cannon, chuck cannon. The only thing that's holding him back here is the fact that he has 14 builds only, so he doesn't have infinite trades. But he should just win long game because of the chuck cannon is really good, and he has height. So moving on to the next game. I mean, let's just quickly talk about all the things. The only thing we really haven't covered is edit accuracy, but awareness, aim, and his game sense is just on point. The game sense to go for height there, the awareness to recognize that the guy on height is not even aware of him, so he has a free opportunity there, right? But not only that, there's a kill in the very early part of game one that he gets a lot of extra mats. 150 mats for free is a big deal, especially in friends, right? It's a very big deal. It's a really solid tack shot here with his green tack, and one shots the guy. My point is like, okay, that happens. Sometimes this sort of thing happens where you're forced into an aim duel and you have to hit the shot, and this is why close range aim is so important, right? Missing your shot in close range is so punishing in the game of Fortnite. So punishing. So like, I mean, if you had a choice, basically what I'm trying to say is like, prioritize that. Forget long range AR, like practice it once in a while, but it's not going to decide that, right? This is where a better awareness would actually help him. If you notice that when he takes this angle, he sees the guy up front and dropping down right here. Obviously it's kind of difficult to notice while you're in game, and it's way easier for me because I'm simply just VOD reviewing him, but could have totally helped and saved some HP there. Regardless, he understands that he should just go more left here. You should totally just go left and down here because it's going downhill. Something I talked about in a video, the last video that I made, is that when it's going downhill like this, just like basically what's happening here, these layers down here are free because this is an area or a layer that was previously not exposed to the map. So there's no possible way, unless someone changes layers, that they're going to be there, right? So if we look at what's happening, let's go back slightly. This is a new layer. Does that make sense? Because it was covered by terrain before, and so if you can access those layers, you'll relatively be safe. And he's also on dead side. See how it's dropping down every time it goes downhill? It's because he knows that in order for more people to be on this layer, enemies, they're probably gonna have to drop down, which is not something that people like to do or tend to do. He uses the pad really well, chooses an elevated layer because he understands that the zone's going up elevation. Recognizes that that player right there has very little mats because of the way he was playing. He was trying to get in on a player completely several times, right? If we go back real quick and just watch what happened. He lands ahead of zone on an elevated layer. Looks around, looks in several directions, notices this. And that's the kill. But also has the awareness to realize this is actually huge, actually. Oh my god. This is really impressive, actually. Okay, so he recognizes that there's one guy right here trying to jump into the box, right? And there's another guy right here trying to defend against it. He understands that this person has died completely, right? And he sees this. And so this is a very important objective to secure. Like, this is 2 people's worth of loot. Obviously one of them is siphon mats because the first player that was trying to get into the box didn't have any mats at all. It's very obvious from his body language, but the other guy could totally have a ton of mats. And so if Tayson secures this is a very, very good thing for his game, and pretty much secures a very high placement immediately if he can secure this safely. So he's gonna go try to secure this and look for it. So I just want to replay this, and I want you guys to pay attention, really close attention, with all the chaos, all the pressure of solo grands happening, how quickly he recognizes that this player has died, right? And that this part is what blows my mind. I'm really impressed, actually. Look, he lands from the launch pad, boxes up, looks around several times, looks at this guy, notices there's nothing there, looks here and notices this player, quickly opens up a window so he doesn't get sprayed from other angles, so it's sort of isolated AR angle, kills him and notices that this guy dies, and immediately goes, like, he knows, he's watching that almost at the same time. Cones his bottom, blocks his back, actually, I believe. He basically does a 360, and so he's not going to be... Something that Tayson does, actually, often is make sure that he tries to keep his awareness limited to as much visual as possible. As we know, audio can be unreliable, and audio is in general unreliable just because of the fact that there's so much going on in Fortnite and the audio is just blurred. Like, there's so many different audio cues happening. So if you could keep everything, all the dangers in your screen and nothing above you, which is a blind spot usually, and behind you, which is another blind spot, if you can keep all your danger in front of you, you'll never be caught off guard. And so if you're aware of, if you're really good at visual awareness, you'll be pretty well off. And so Tayson just constantly blocking his back off. He's constantly putting pieces to block his top off. And so he's putting himself in a position where his awareness is going to reward him. He's trying to go up layers here. He has a lot of mats, right? And so he wants to stay on higher layers, because if you're healthy on mats, if you're on higher layer, you're going to try to look for more kills and be more safe. You'll never get jumped on by like 1 or 2 people and get, you know, out of control. Blocks his top here. Understands that someone's smacking on his wall. That's the audio cue, and he immediately, like, so something that I noticed insanely that Tayson does is, as soon as there's even a chance that an audio cue he hears is something related to him, he stops everything he's doing and just checks, just make sure that is it him, and if it is him, is he safe after that? Does that make sense? So when he hears this pickaxe, it might not even be his cone, right? But he needs to check. He should just check. It's the safest play to do. And so blocks off his left here, his right probably blocked off. I can't really tell. It's not, but I think he understands that this is front of zone and no one's out here. And so he's gonna try to stay on this layer because he has a lot of old builds, his own builds on this layer. And so if he can take advantage of that, he'll save a lot more mats. You'll notice he blocked off his top, but single layering wood when he should know that he's second height, by the way. So if he knows that when he's blocking off his top here, you should just double layer, because every time you single layer with wood, it's very, very difficult to react in time. But if you're single layering with a hard mat and you give it some time to build, most people can react in time. So, I mean, even wood, when it's like built up a little bit, it'll be pretty chilling. He tries to get on this layer, so notice what he tries to do here. I want to wait here. So, okay, look. So if he goes on this layer right here, let's use the yellow actually. If he tries to go on this layer right here, this is a problem because he's exposed to second height. There's no old builds above this layer, and so he's going to be exposed to height. But not only that, he's going to have to invest the 20 builds that he has onto traversing on this layer. But instead, if he decides to drop one more, right, and takes this layer right here, if you see this, if he tries to take this box right here, he should be pretty well off, because then if he double layers his top and cones his top right here, I can't draw a 3D, forgive me, but yeah, I mean, that's actually pretty good. If he cones his top here and then ensures that height's not shooting him, he should pretty much have like 15 builds while breaking in through hard metal, and so he should, and once he's in this enemy old hard metal, he should be pretty safe, right? Do you guys see that? It's instant visual awareness, and obviously this comes from a lot of scrim time and a lot of tournament experience, but he just sees the fact that he can just hop into this free layer right here, right? And once he does that, he should have a free path for like 3-4 blocks, almost all the way maybe into white circle. If he gets to white circle, that's really good, and I think he will. Worst case, he doesn't. He gets 2 free blocks of movement because it's metal, and he should be at 15 builds to cover for that last bit of distance that he needs to travel to get to white circle. So let's keep going. But the fact that he gets out in the open, he has like a split second to like observe the environment and immediately sees this play is really good, right? He doesn't even like question it. He just knows. And so he's still elevated. I would say he's second height still. And because he's elevated, he should be pretty free to look at kills. So it's something, remember how I mentioned earlier, blind spot is above you. And so if he's on an elevated layer, he's going to be able to look down onto people below him and abuse the fact that they won't have visual awareness opportunity. The only thing they're going to hear is the shock and shot literally hitting them. There's no way they could react. So he gets a free shock and shot crack on that guy. Probably remembers that guy's skin. So if he sees him again, he's just going to play a little bit more aggressive because he already hit him. See how he pulled back? This is very good because this layer, like I said, is a good layer because it's metal, and even though it's second height, he's completely safe from the threat above. The main disadvantage of being second height is either height's going to drop down on you and start engaging in close range fights, or he should spray his AR. But if you're underneath hard builds like this, not only does height not know where you are, but height doesn't even want to take the fight. It's just not worth his AR, and so you don't have much, and not worth his time. He's probably just going to look for other opportunities. So he's saving as much mats as possible. He has 8 builds left, and he's just looking to sort of get as much free movement as possible. Something that Tayson could do, and it really depends on how confident he thinks that someone, you know, is going to pass on the layer below him, is he can play a pocket. A pocket is something like where you're sitting somewhere and you will not be able to get shot from your side or any of your blind spots, but you can only see in front of you. And so if he breaks this floor and sits back here, right, he has a really good angle on someone as they run from the old zone into new zone. They're gonna run like this, and Tayson should have a free shotgun angle at the back of their head. You see that? But what I believe is that Tayson doesn't value that much because this is really late into the game, and sort of getting an impact at top 4 is like whatever. At this point, you just want to like make sure that you're healthy and you're gonna live and sort of like stay ahead. Maybe he tries to do it. I'm not sure. I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, if he's super patient, you might have seen that, but I think this is fine. Do you see this? This is very important, actually. The reason he drops down regardless is because he literally looks. I actually see this now. Do you see how he looks right here? Notice how Tayson looks here. Oh my god, I can't even pause it. That's how fast he recognizes that this isn't a play. He looks out into this layer, understands there's no pre-built roofs, right? There's nothing out here. This is completely open. So the player on height who's looking down and understands, you know, Tayson's on second height, as soon as Tayson enters this box, even if he builds, then the height player immediately knows where Tayson is, and then it's just going to start pressuring AR in that exact box. But this is full built metal, and so if Tayson goes on the layer below and then starts building ahead, even if someone else is on that layer, this is way better than staying on this open layer, which height's going to spray down you, straight on onto you. If that makes sense, then we're good to go. He's just trying to get onto hard mat cover and try to keep his location completely hidden to height, because height is the most dangerous player right now. And so like even if there's people on his layer, he's just doing the very good thing of just making sure that they're not even a threat. Very good, just sitting on the right hand. Probably gonna pop the medkit and then jump in. Oh, this is scary. What? I mean, he has no option, honestly. I really like that he didn't even try to take that fight. He goes for an unaware player. He goes for someone that is not aware of him coming. and he values that more than jumping into the first opportunity, if that makes sense. So basically what I'm trying to say is, look at this right here. It's quite obvious that this player knows that Tayson's here. He's aware. So in other words, he's going to be ready to fight immediately. There's no reaction time buffer. And so, I mean, obviously if Tayson could do this again, he'd probably just break down instead of breaking this wall and not lose that HP. But Tayson just doesn't want to handshake a fight, which is a complete 50-50. This fight right here is not a 50-50 because he's recognized that there's no wall here and there's probably no wall here. He could probably see both and sees the plan to like sort of drop down immediately and then look for this right hand, or just go for the, you know, surprise shot. Anytime you get a first shot on someone where they don't expect it, the reaction time is gonna have to kick in before they can react, and then there's gun swap delay and then things like that. So he's trying to take a favorable fight here. It's not so much even about the right hand, it's the more about that this guy doesn't know what's coming, right? And if it was a left hand, I think Tayson would do the exact same thing. It's the power of fighting someone who doesn't know you're coming is ridiculously good. It's really strong. So like Tayson's not just aware about general things, he's aware about other people's awareness because their body language and just like, okay, will this guy even know I'm coming? Gets a second place. Really good. Obviously there's some games missing in this highlight montage, but most of them I don't think were too impactful on his, like they were not detrimental by any means. But in general, his awareness is really strong. The plays he makes just makes a lot of sense, and his aim is just reliable, guys. I don't remember the last time I saw him miss a shot, and it's not. And the whole point is like, I'm not trying to say he has the best aim in terms of like hitting the hardest shot possible. You get what I'm saying? But it's just reliable. So if he gets into a close range fight, he will not miss, and that's all you need. That's what you need. And I don't mean to say that in a way that like makes it sound easy to do, because it definitely is not easy to do. I'm definitely one of those people that knows that firsthand. Aim is very difficult to train, and it takes a long time before you have good aim, right? Tayson prioritizes taking his big here. It's his last heal, and so now he has 500-600 mats going into second moving, and he's trying to look for it. Pulls further forward. Okay, so look at this. Zone came from approximately right here, comes here, and so when it pulls further forward, what's actually happening, if I can draw a larger scale in black, maybe let's do this. This is the first circle, right? It's pushing this way, and this is where Tayson is right now. He's somewhere around here, right? And then the next zone pulls out this way, and so what's happening is the congestion is more built up on this side, and then this side is dead side, and this is the same sort of circle right here. And so when that happens, right, if we can redraw it on the main drawing, this is congested. And so if Tayson gets a pepper and sort of free builds, or like sort of free rotates, maybe cover his top, because Height's like the main player that's going to look at him. No one's going to really look forward with an AR. That's just really rare in solos, especially when zone pulls. Height's going to be the only player that you're going to have to worry about. So I wonder if he's going to cover his head, but he's just going to take a pepper and just rush forward and really just try to get in front of zone, because when it's dead side like this, it's really safe to just run forward. There's no old builds, but more importantly, actually old builds will probably help him a lot here, but more importantly, there's no one ahead of zone. You just know that, just because immediately when zone pulls, you have that information because you are keeping track of where dead side is, right? Immediately on forward, covers his head here, really good. Doesn't really cover his back. You see this? Because he just knows. He knows that no one's looking at him. He just knows that when zone pulls twice in the same direction, something like, you know, something like this into this pattern, dead side's going to be front side, and you're going to easily have an if you have a pepper or a launch pad or a bouncer or some sort of mobility that gets you ahead early, would be really good. Sometimes you don't even need a pepper. You can just take that walk and start moving. You'll just be exposed for longer periods of time, but you know, pepper is great there. So he's saving a lot of mats here, really a lot of mats. Notice how he doesn't tunnel. Tayson in solos just doesn't tunnel because mat conservation is super important. Trios, everything changes, but this is what I'm talking about in terms of game sense. Like, this is the stuff you learn by watching better players other than yourself, and sort of seeing what they do. Picks up a kill there. I wonder if he's trying to see maybe if he can go for this mats. Yeah, he has a pepper still running. You see how he clears the area? He like checks it before, sort of even gives people time, other people time. Okay, like testing them. Okay, do you see this loot? And then after like 5 seconds, it's like, okay, yeah, bet no one knows this loot. Yeah, I'm gonna go for it. Especially a chuck cannon, right? Chuck cannon is so valuable, guys. It should be a main objective to like sort of fight for an end game. because to really think about it, like there's 5 chuck cannons in the game, they will appear in endgame, because the way it works is like if a valuable item is just passed on like this, it'll most likely just continue to be picked up every time that user is killed, and so it'll eventually end up in endgame. Usually maybe like 1 or 2 might be lost and not carried on, but you will find a chuck cannon in the endgame if you find a kill. And so if you can prioritize that, that'll be really good. He's super patient here. He doesn't just rush ahead. Finds the old builds that are hard mats and tries to play them just like the last round, right? He plays into the old builds that are hard mats, and so that gives him a high layer without the disadvantage of being exposed to height or second height. The second height disadvantage of being exposed. Doesn't want to drop here. It's a good place to be. I don't think anyone on his layer right now, so I think there might be one player above him and then a height player above that, or he's just second height. Not entirely sure, but he has 3 builds right now. He's using third-person camera to be extra aware. Goes straight into the bush. He's really weak and it's just over. So the only other option, I do think there's another option there. I think what he should have done is just be a little bit more patient. He doesn't have no chuck cannon. He should just hang right here. He should just sit right here and he's fine. Even what he could do, this is what I call a pocket, right? Like you don't want to go ulti low when you know there's 2-3 players there, and it's a lot easier for me to be saying this because I'm VOD reviewing him. He's literally just has to go through the pressure of the tournament and play the game. So I am by no means saying that I'm better than him. I am definitely not, but I do think that this is the correct play. Like you go on here, right? You hop on this cone, then you go left, cut here, and then just sit here, right? And there's builds above you, and there might be a player above you too, but you can just crosshair place that, and then you can sort of, if you're worried of a height seeing you from this angle, even though if there's builds directly above you, you can just place with these 3 builds and place little floors above you and maybe try to cover that. But if you stay here, you can sit in a blind spot of a player that's low ground, right? They're going to be coming in like this, and you have an easy angle to just be sitting right here and sort of look down and maybe get a kill that way. The only worry is that you're like low white, so you can't tank storm that much, so eventually you will have to drop down. I would love to just drop down after a player comes out from this box though, so you can shoot him in the back. So him going a little bit early and possibly panicking is what got him killed 5th. He could possibly secure top 3 if he looks to play that pocket. He's healthy mats, has chuck cannon, low surge. He gets a tag there, but he's still behind on surge. But he sees this whole opportunity to take this free rotate. He probably used 4 builds there. It's so strong. He realizes that this right side is really free. He's just being aware in terms of audio cues. Something you can sort of do, and I've done this before in the past, is just sort of like listen the general direction of the majority of the audio cues. Does that make sense? So if you listen to that, you can sort of tell like, okay, where are the holders, because you can hear the AR shots, and also where are the big fights happening that I can third party that are close range. So if 2 people are fighting each other with shotgun, you can hear it if you really pay attention. And I almost guarantee that tier 1 pros do this, man, either subconsciously or consciously, like they're doing it on purpose or just automatically doing it. They sort of listen to the general audio cues that are coming in, and they're just taking it all in and gathering whatever information they can. And so Tayson possibly could have not heard anything coming from this right side, but also it's just expanding side, it's dead side over here, right? And it's just a good rotate that he's doing. I think he's playing it really well. This rotate is really efficient. Understand that this player is clueless, like literally has no edit. Look how where he is right here, right? He places he covers his top. Firstly, every time you're building a new block, you should sort of build ahead of you. This is something that Bizzle did in Anaheim and in general in the past as well. He sort of tunnels in front of him. He doesn't tunnel like on the box he's in. He sort of builds out in front of him, and that gives the build a little bit more extra time to get stronger. But more importantly, it covers a lot more angles. You're sort of building in front of you instead of just building where you are. So this is something that Tayson does as well. But he notices that this floor is placed, and I'm really impressed because this sort of visual awareness is really hard to do. You can barely see this floor being placed. It's obviously not his, so someone's coming like this, and he knows this, right? Someone's coming like this. There's a guy right here, and so he places this wall to piece control him, and then spins around so he blocks off all third parties, right? He blocks off all third parties, I can't draw. So he spins around, blocks off all third parties, and then looks to engage on this guy, which clearly, I have no idea if he processed this as well, but he's building brick and this guy's building brick, so it's very likely that this guy has no clue he just got pieced, right? If you build metal, it's very obvious Q, but I have no clue if this might be a stretch, but if Tayson processed this too, then holy moly, right? He pieces that, he spins around, ensures that third party is just not an option, and if it is, he's gonna have an audio cue of his wall breaking behind him before those shots hit. Also, he's front of zone, so a third party existing from an AR shot is very unlikely. Owns this, opens right hand, edit accuracy actually insane, ends up with the crosshair at the exact position that he needs to be, so he does the edit this way, right? So his crosshair is literally right here, which is the closest to the target. You guys see that? This is his head, and so he does the edit perfectly. It's a right hand, and also he's using attack, so he's more than happy to go for the first shot into the 50-50. It's also possible that Tayson just knows that this guy's unaware based on body language, because this guy's not looking at him at all, right? Completely clueless, and it just pays off a lot. Pays off huge, because look at his mat count. Every time you get an impact in first moving on a person that, you know, has normal amount of mats, you're gonna get a big impact. You're gonna get a big refresh. Right now his win condition is satisfied. He's currently, let's look at this. I'll actually show you this. This is actually really important. So look at his mats. I think it's safe to say that his mats being 1, 3, 4. This is pretty average for anyone in first moving, and I feel like he's on par with everyone else. I feel like most people in this game specifically are gonna have somewhere like this, if not a little less, right? But after the impact, he's something like 5, 3, 5. And so if that's the case, right, he's won the game if he just plays really safe after this point. After this kill, he should just play extremely safe, and he should literally just secure top 10 just off of that. And then he can make another play after he gets top 10 or gets somewhere close to there, and he should secure more points after that. So his win condition is literally solved. Like, it's really good. He's gonna get a really good game here, almost guaranteed, unless he misplays, right? Unless he doesn't play safe. But the fact that he's 5-3-5 right now, it should just be, it's over. He tries to get ahead of the pack, so no one can block him off, because right now the area that he got the loot in, it seemed pretty cut off. Like, there's a lot of builds, and potentially could get worse over time. There's still 12 seconds till the zone closes, and so when more people come in, it's going to be very scary, because he could get buried, or at the very, you know, worst case scenario, there's going to be a lot of congestion in front of him. And so if the zone happens to pull something like this, right, same pattern that we talked about before, if this happens and he's all the way in the back here, right, which is a very scary spot to be if it double pulls forward, and there's a whole bunch of builds like this in front of him, this is a very scary situation, and this sort of thing gets you killed. So he wastes no time, understands this sort of concept, and understands that he needs to get ahead of the pack and make sure that no one's blocking him, and he has priority to get out in front if the zone does double pull. And you see this? He's already in zone back here, man. He's already in zone back here at the very back, but he understands that he doesn't want to get blocked off for the next zone. And I mean, he has the mats to spare. You know, he has the mats to spare. Him being 5-3-3 at the current point in time is completely fine. He's still very much ahead. He's still top 10 territory at this point. It's 40 people left right now, but he's the guy who's definitely most likely to get top 10, top 5 right now, just based off that one impact. That's a huge impact. Not every impact is the same, guys. You can kill someone that has Cypher Mats, kill someone that has 1-1-1, but this guy had max mats for Tayson, and so he's playing accordingly. He tries to go around dead side. Do you see how zone came from here to here and then went here? Do you see this? This is the exact pattern. If you look at the minimap, the zone was previously back here. And so if everyone is coming in like this is the congestion. And so if you want to go dead side, which is basically exactly what Tayson's trying to do, he's right here. He doesn't want to go like this, because that would involve going through the congestion. You're running through the traffic. Rather, you're going to go wide. Maybe use wood because no one's paying attention to you, just like he is, and sort of get rid of your soft mats first so you can save your hard mats for later, and access dead side. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to take the path that's going to be least resistance. He's going to try to take the path that has no one blocking him. And so something that you'll realize, maybe even in trios, I feel like for tunnelers, you take note of this, is that congestion is not your friend. You only want to play in congestion if you need an impact, or like you want to like desperately make a play, right? And so if you already secured your win condition by getting an impact earlier, try to play toward dead side because you have the mats to afford it, and you need to access that and sort of just play to live. because you have more mats than the average player in your lobby. And if that's the case, you'll do really well. You just have to sort of cash in on your placement. You have the mats to do it. So something that most people need to understand is when you're higher mats than average, I think this applies on other game modes as well, right? You need to be elevated. The only time it doesn't apply in trios is if you're playing power positions like low ground, high ground. If that's the case, then you can secure it. You should look to secure it. But in solos, very common thing that Tayson does. He has a lot of mats. He looks to try to go up. Not something crazy, but he understands his right side is completely free. Remember how we talked about this pattern? Yeah, and then I can't draw well. Remember how we talked about this pattern, and this side being dead side. This side is dead side. He understands that as he's pathing like this side is free. He doesn't block off his right at all, actually. So if we notice that he go back, he blocks off his right to initially, blocks off his back so that no one can, and then stop blocking off his right. He could have, blocked up and stopped blocking off his right or a little bit earlier, save a little bit of mats, but I think it's okay. Notice how that when he's ahead of the average mat user in his lobby, like he has a lot more mats than usual by getting that impact, he's more than okay by wasting mats. Your biggest priority should be living, right? You don't really care if you waste a little bit extra mat. It's the biggest thing. So zone double pulls forward. He looks to get ahead immediately. Still stays on a relatively higher layer, but he avoids second height entirely. Pre-builds this 2-box so that he can look down. I would love to look down here, but I think he's looking for height. Maybe it's height scuff. Yep, looks down. Hits that guy for 50, gets ahead because he's behind the zone. He's not second height. He shouldn't be scared. The only thing he should just be scared right now is the fact that this is okay. He did place the floor. I was about to say I didn't even notice this. Okay, he placed the floor here. This is very important because if he doesn't, and this is the only thing that's stopping the guy above him from jumping in his box, Tayson's gonna end up editing this floor, right? He's gonna edit this floor just like he did previously, and then have this blind spot be completely vulnerable. It's gonna be an option of attack for the guy above him. And so now that he's double layered, he gives him a bigger reaction time window for him to react to someone breaking into his box. So it's really good. I'm very happy he placed this floor. It's actually way more important than anyone would see here, I think. If you don't place this, then you're pretty screwed. It's very dangerous. Right now, he's not visually aware of what's above him, right? And so if he wants to sort of put that on the back burner, he needs to place several builds there to give himself a bigger reaction time to the worst case scenario, which is someone jumping in his box. And there are people above him other than height. And so zone pulls back. There's a lot of old builds because it pulls back, right? I think this was the zone pattern. It's like this. Second zone one here. This is third zone, and then fourth zone. If you want to sort of, it's kind of hard to draw, but fourth zone just did one here. So this is final moving. So what this means, right, for you, actually does something like this, right? It goes slightly to the side, and what this means is that most of the old builds is going to be somewhere here. Most of the old builds are going to be here, right? And so if Tayson sticks to the left, he should have a lot of old builds to protect him from second height, and he can still take advantage of the fact that he's elevated and look down and clear out everyone low ground. And that should secure him at least top 2, and then if he wants top 1, he can look to, win that final fight. But the worst case scenario, he should be able to secure top 2, top 3 this game if he plays towards the old builds. Because if you notice, like let's do it on the minimap, right? If you'll notice on the minimap, previous zone was right here. It's gonna be really small, so bear with me. Then it went this way, and then next zone went here. So what does that mean, right? I mentioned it earlier. Old builds are gonna be right here. So Tayson needs to stick on the left side of zone to be protected from height. If he tries to go out this way, this is not a time to go out dead side. Like I know you have 220 wood, but it's wood, and you don't want to be on an area where you're gonna be relatively open for people to spray at you, especially height. So Tayson should stick on the left side and stay under old builds to be protected and take advantage of elevated layers. And we'll keep playing. Notices that the guy above him is aggressing, but he doesn't need to take this fight because he has 220 wood. He should take this fight in a better area. That guy's like trying to go after him, so resets it because he understands the guy's aware of him. You can see the guy's intention, right? The guy's intention is very clear there. He's trying to fight him at the potential right hand, so Tayson doesn't take the fight. He's so aware of this. He's so aware of what the other guy's thinking and their body language. It's really well done. And then this is what we talked about earlier, right? Insane aim, really good close range shot. I think people really underestimate how difficult this shot is to really hit, because it's extremely close range, and it looks really easy because Tayson's doing it, right? But when you're under pressure and you're trying to hit shots like the left hand jump shot that he does right here, sort of like stays undercover, left hand jump shot 80, has really good target switch tracking with AR, and does really good. So that's it for now. I know I sort of went through a lot of things and spoke really fast, so if you're new to this, by all means, all the information is there. Comment section is there for you to ask me any questions on anything. Don't be embarrassed, ask me anything. But in general, I want you guys to just understand that my conclusion, guys, is the fact that these things is something that I've seen all over, spread all over, right? In terms of Tayson, and I feel like the things that I've identified are pretty close to reality in terms of what you guys should just be focusing on. And yes, these are broad topics. Game sense is not something you can just like be like, oh, I'm gonna focus on it. But what I mean is like, understand your weaknesses and understand that certain skills in competitive will just pay off way harder, way harder than sitting in creative or PGs or all day, right? Because let's be honest, Tayson, Bizzle, Nanolite, Hen, these guys play wagers here and there, but they are not insanely mechanical, right? And for competitive, you have to have that awareness, that game sense, and have really good aim, and all of these things will just pay off for you. I think we can comfortably conclude that Tayson focuses on the right things. This is why he's good, right? I think after watching him play, it's very obvious to me that he's really good at what he does, and he focuses on those sort of things. And so if we have to ask ourselves the question, okay, Zykoma, I know what to focus on now. How do I actually do it? Okay, how do I actually do it? And if we want to talk about that, I think it's a pretty good topic. But game sense, obviously scrim, play end games, because end games game sense is very complex, and not necessarily complex, but more so deep. It's very deep, and better. I don't think we've reached the ceiling for endgame game sense yet. I think Tayson's doing really well, but I think when everyone gets to that point, some new stuff has to be innovated for people to play at the top. So game sense is really good. Aim obviously is extremely good. There's tons of tools for aim and being good at aim. Kovacs is one thing. Pro players like Threats play Kovacs all the time, and they do extremely well. So definitely practice your aim, whether it's aim duels in game, whether it's just playing the game and focusing consciously on your aim, or just Kovacs. I think there's a bunch of things that you could do to improve your aim. Try to figure out what works with you and try to iterate and fix, just refine your practices. If something doesn't work, change it. Edit accuracy, this just has to do with being very conscious about your edits and having really good mouse control. So something you'll notice, and all my teammates have said the same thing in the past, when you Kovacs, you'll notice your edit accuracy and your click timing will just actually naturally be better, right? Because your mouse control is getting better. So Kovacs could honestly account for these two things, right? And then this would be VR/scrim. And so when people say like, okay, after scrims or before scrims don't run all day. For prac players, they're like 5 games a day, and East Open players, I mean, they run often, but there are times when East Open is down and people don't really, no one's running, right? But then that's when you do this. That's when you VOD review. That's when you watch pro players and look really deep into what they do. That's when you watch yourself and try to identify the specific issues that you're bad at. And that's literally part of the video, right? That's something that you want to really focus on, is like, okay, what am I weak at? When I'm studying for that exam, what am I bad at? So, because that's the place where I'm going to gain the most marks. That's the place where I'm going to get the best placement result out of. If I'm really bad at my aim and everything else seems on par, I should really be focusing on this, right? Awareness is something that just comes with time and experience. I think there are exercises that you can do to be extra aware. I think you can improve it faster if you're consciously aware that maybe you're bad at awareness, or there's certain things you can do to minimize the awareness that you need, like Tayson did, which is basically block off or double layer the blind spots that he has, right? And he does this so well, so consistently, and it's definitely deliberate. There's not a stretch. I really feel like he does this deliberately. And so if you realize that and you appreciate that, then you'll realize that there's way more to awareness than most people appreciate. Just make sure that these things is what you focus on. And if you do this, it'll be really good. I truly believe it. So that's it for now, guys. If you have any questions, like I said, post it in the comments. It's a very long video. If you want to rewatch it. There's a lot of stuff in here. I personally would rewatch it. There'll be another video in 2 days, and I'll see you guys then. Take care. Thank you for watching.